Tuning in for some movie reviews. Film flickers and movie reviews. Let's hear those movie reviews. Film flickers and movie reviews. And action.
Hello Flickers, it's been a while and we're not quite back yet, but we figured we'd get this review up. It's a review of Spider-Man Homecoming. Yeah, the latest in the Spider-Man kind of not exactly trilogy reboot fest, this time handled by Marvel working with Sony. And you can see the difference. It's much more of a Marvel film than a Sony film by a long way. And it holds together pretty well. All in all, quite a good film. Now this time around, they haven't bothered trying to go back with the kind of the story of Spider-Man. They've starting straight off where he is already the Spider-Man. He's already kind of fighting crime at a street level. It follows on from his appearance in the Avengers Civil War film. And it kind of includes a little bit as a warm-up for the audience, done in a pretty good way. Tom Holland plays a gawky teenager incredibly well, mainly because he probably is one still slightly. And they use kind of all the teenage tropes with always recording themselves, always looking for social and viral things, even though he's not allowed to post any of this stuff up. He still records them. But this kind of this follows on from the Spider-Man we saw in that film, where he wants to do more. He wants to kind of play with the big boys. He wants to be the superhero and the savior of all the normal people in the streets. And we see him kind of getting into trouble and being bailed out. And because of that, we see quite a lot of the big ticket superheroes. So we do see Tony Stark and Iron Man appear more than once. So it kind of feels a bit more like an audition tape to have Spider-Man in the larger universe than it does a standalone Spider-Man film. But that said, it is still easily the best Spider-Man film yet, by far. I imagine there'll be people who disagree with that, because you've got your lovers for the other two as well. But whilst I did like the films within those other two reboot eras, this one for me just kind of, it feels more like Spider-Man. It feels more like the Spider-Man we expect to have. He is a gawky teenager. He is struggling with all these powers that he suddenly has. There's not so much of the whole Uncle Ben kind of thing that we see in the other ones. This period is he's over that, but there are a couple of instances. Let's get into the bad things. I'm about to go straight into that. Let's go into the bad things. There aren't that many. So the first one I said, it does kind of feel more like an audition tape for the Avengers collection films than it does a standalone film. But also there is a bit of teenage angst in the middle. You can't really get away with that because that's the era that this Spider-Man is in. It kind of detracts away from the film a bit until you realise that is also a build-up to part of the confrontation at the end. But until you know that, it feels like a change of pace, and it's almost like a go to the toilet time, like in the Star Wars prequels, the marriage part, which was kind of the cue to go to the lavatory or go to make a cup of tea. Second watch, if I watch it again, I know now how much that is part of the storyline, so maybe I will kind of buy into it a bit more. But on the first watch, it certainly felt kind of a bit cheesy and slightly forced. So yeah, I mean that's the bad part of this of it. I mean those are really the only two things that stand out in terms of the bad side. The good side, they managed to make the Vulture a compelling bad guy, which I found amazing, because whenever I've seen the Vulture in the comic books, in cartoon series, whenever he's been announced or partially announced in the films, that's immediately turned me off. I think the Vulture was a ridiculous supervillain. He's just everything bad about comic book supervillains in one shot. But Michael Keaton plays this amazingly well. He is menacing without being comically menacing. You really do kind of get that impression that what he's doing is because he feels justified in doing it, because he's trying to protect his family, so. Yeah, I mean, it's the first time I've ever seen the Vulture actually look like a proper supervillain, and rather than just kind of a comic relief. So, an incredible job. This film, it's great action. It's got some superb action. It's got some genuine heart. And yeah, I think, as long as they don't screw it up any sequels, which have always been the weakness to Spider-Man for some reason, then Tom Holland could have a really good career playing this character, and I really hope he does. So, I am going to give this 4 flicks out of 5. Genuinely worth watching. Perhaps not all the way up there with the top tier Marvel superhero films, but definitely in the top half and well in the top half. Give it a watch. Thanks for watching, Flickers.